A virus smoothed out my head, burned my ridges off, I'm flat instead. Now my face is flush, I don't feel like a real Klingon. When people see the difference, they'll probably ask me, hey man, what's the deal? And I'll say it's a long story, but okay, the thing that happened to me was a virus smoothed out my head. This is a review of the Star Trek Enterprise episodes Affliction and Divergence. If you have not seen these episodes and you don't want to know, be warned, spoilers beyond this point. Star Trek Enterprise had almost been canceled after Season 3. Now it was Season 4, and the show was not yet officially canceled, but was very much on the bubble. So, with the end in sight, the creators of the show got together and said to themselves, what's the biggest waste of fucking time we could possibly spend 2 episodes on? And here's what they did. We open on a scene of a bunch of Klingons giving another Klingon a bad dose of lime Kool-Aid that makes his forehead ridges start to dissolve. Wonder what that's all about. Back on Earth, Enterprise has arrived to attend the launch of the brand new Starship Columbia, commanded by Captain Archer's kinda-sorta girlfriend, Captain Hernandez. Also, Trip is transferring from Enterprise to Columbia. He says it's because he needs a change of scenery and a new challenge, but everybody knows it's really because he's trying to make a clean break with T'Pol. Especially T'Pol. In San Francisco, Phlox and Hoshi are walking out of Madame Chang's after dinner when they're accosted by a gang of shadowy thugs who knock Hoshi down and drag Phlox away. Phlox is like, "What's the charge? Eating a meal? A succulent Chinese meal?" Meanwhile, Trip is aboard Columbia trying to get his new ship and crew into shape. This one guy gives him a little bit of lip, and Trip's like, "You don't like it, Ensign? You can go somewhere else and create your own Starfleet. See how that works out for you." Aboard Enterprise, Archer talks to T'Pol and says, "Hey, I have an idea for how we can find out who took Phlox and also have a few extraneous scenes so we can stretch this into a 2-parter. He wants T'Pol to mind meld with Hoshi to see if she can remember any more details about Phlox's abduction. Elsewhere, Malcolm is trying to check surveillance satellites for clues, but he finds that they were conveniently deactivated at the moment Phlox was taken. Then he gets a mysterious message from this guy, Harris, who arranges a secret meeting. T'Pol does the mind meld with Hoshi, and Hoshi remembers that she heard one of the abductors speaking Rigelian. T'Pol finds a Rigelian freighter that left Earth orbit after Phlox was taken. Archer's like, "Follow that freighter." Meanwhile, Malcolm has his sneaky meeting with Harris, who wears his black secret agent uniform just to be extra sneaky. Harris tells Malcolm, "I have an assignment for you." But we don't get to know what it is yet. Ooh, the suspense. I can't wait for the payoff to this little mystery that I'm sure will be totally worth it. Phlox has been taken to a research lab on a Klingon colony. He is introduced to his partner, Antok, and his boss, Klingon Uncle Phil. Antok says there's a virus spreading throughout the Klingon Empire, threatening millions of lives, and we've kidnapped you to help us find a cure, Phlox, because damn it, you're the best! A little later, T'Pol is trying to meditate, but she discovers, to her confusion and mild annoyance, that she and Trip are connected through the Force. Over on Columbia, Trip snaps out of it, and that same smartass ensign from earlier is like, "Are you okay, sir?" And Trip's like, "I'm fine. If I need your help, Ensign, I'll ask for it. And stop doing those funny voices. They all sound the same anyway." Enterprise catches up to the Rigelian freighter, which has been attacked and destroyed. There's no sign of Phlox. Archer says, "Malcolm, find out what kind of weapons did this, and when you do, don't lie to me about it, okay?" Back at the Klingon research lab, Klingon Uncle Phil brings Phlox an infected subject for dissection. Phlox is like, "I can't dissect him, he's still alive." So Klingon Uncle Phil shoots the guy and kills him, like, there you go. You can't just kill people so I can dissect them. It's not medically ethical. How am I supposed to know that? I'm Klingon Uncle Phil, not Klingon Dr. Phil. Actually, I don't think that would help. Anyway, aboard Enterprise, Malcolm is having another sneaky chat with Harris. It turns out the Rigelian freighter was destroyed by the Klingons, which we already know because we've seen Phlox with the Klingons. Harris tells Malcolm to lie to Archer about who attacked the freighter. Malcolm's like, "But I'm really not supposed to do that." Harris is like, "Just do it." Then Enterprise is attacked by a Klingon ship, and a boarding party beams over and does something to the Enterprise computer. One of the Klingons is shot and captured, but the others get away. Archer looks at the captured Klingon who is being restrained in sickbay, and he's like, "A Klingon with a smooth forehead? How'd that happen?" T'Pol's like, "I don't know, but I'm sure the story behind it will more than justify spending 2 episodes of our final season on this." At the Klingon research station, Phlox is like, "Hey, I just figured out what you Klingons did. You tried to modify your DNA using human augment DNA. Only it had unexpected side effects, like causing your forehead ridges to dissolve. And then it mutated and became a contagious virus. Oh, you no-good Klingons, you!" Klingon Dr. Phil is like, "Yeah, you caught us. Now get back to work."
Hey folks, Future Steve here. You may have noticed a moment ago, as I did while I was editing the video that you are watching right now, that I referred to the character of General Kavag as Klingon Dr. Phil instead of Klingon Uncle Phil, which is the joke that makes more sense because he's played by James Avery, the late great actor who of course played Uncle Phil on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But the thing is, I already made that joke a few minutes ago where I said, "Oh, I'm Klingon Uncle Phil, not Klingon Dr. Phil." And apparently while I was writing the script and also while I was shooting the video, that Dr. Phil bit got stuck in my brain. So you'll find that for the rest of the video, whenever I refer to General Kavag, aka Klingon Uncle Phil, I actually call him Klingon Dr. Phil, which doesn't make sense. Klingon Uncle Phil is the joke, but here we are. I guess I could have gone back and re-recorded the audio and corrected it and had it say Klingon Uncle Phil every time, but this is just a lot faster, and let's face it, a lot funnier. Anyway, sorry. I'll do better next time. Back to the review.
On Enterprise, T'Pol has examined the black box from the destroyed freighter and realized that it was deliberately erased. But the only people who had access to it were her, Captain Archer, and Malcolm. Archer's like, "Why'd you do it, Malcolm?" Malcolm's like, "I ain't saying nothing." Archer throws Malcolm in the brig and goes, "Maybe now you'll talk." Malcolm says, "I can't tell you anything. There are some obligations that go beyond my loyalty to you." Archer's like, "What the hell does that mean? How could there be loyalty to anyone or anything beyond me? How could that even exist?" Over in the Phlox part of the episode, the Klingons are getting impatient. Phlox goes, "Why didn't you abduct Dr. Sung? He'd be better at this than me." Antok says, "We thought about that, but it looked like it would be too hard." Klingon Dr. Phil says, "The High Council has decided to eliminate the virus by killing everyone who's been infected. There's a fleet on its way here to kill all of us, and it'll be here in 5 days, so you've got that long to cure the plague." Phlox doesn't think that's enough time. Antok says, "What if we could find a way to stop the infection from progressing to its final lethal stage? That way, all the DNA changes to those infected would stick, and we'd not only have a cure, we'd have our own Klingon augments. If we could do that, I bet they wouldn't destroy us." Phlox is like, "I'm not down with that. I won't help you." So Klingon Dr. Phil is like, "Okay, guards, take him away." Meanwhile, Columbia finally gets underway. Meanwhile, the smooth-headed Klingon gets thrown into the cell next to Malcolm, and Malcolm reveals that he knows about the virus afflicting the Klingons. Meanwhile, that thing the Klingons did to Enterprise's computer activates, and pressure starts to build up inside the ship's engines. If the pressure gets too high, the reactor will breach, and the ship will explode. They can reduce the pressure by flying faster, but how long can they keep that up? How long? My God in heaven, how long? To be continued right now. So somehow Columbia has already caught up to Enterprise, and they've got a cockamamie scheme to transfer Trip from Columbia to Enterprise by having him put on a spacesuit and pull himself along a cable from one ship to the other, because that's the only way they can move someone from one ship to the other, since Enterprise can't slow down, and also Trip is the only person who can fix Enterprise's engine in time. Archer also temporarily frees Malcolm from the brig, because he's the only person who can stand there and watch while Trip climbs up a cable. They do the tripwire transfer. This is some Judith and Garfield Reeves Stevens shit right here. And after about 4 hours of that, Trip is aboard Enterprise and ready to do whatever to fix the engines. So he does whatever to fix the engines, and that takes another week and a half. And by the time it's done, the episode is almost half over. So we cut to the Klingon research facility where Antok visits Phlox in his jail cell and says, "Hey, I've got an idea. Let's keep working on the cure for the virus, but tell Klingon Uncle Phil we're working on making Klingon augments, so he'll leave us alone and let us work." Phlox is like, "Okay." Meanwhile, Archer tells Malcolm that he's checked his browser history and found out about his secret chats with Harris. Archer's like, "I want to talk to this Harris guy." Meanwhile, the Klingons who boarded Enterprise earlier show up at the research facility, and it turns out they work for Klingon Dr. Phil, and the one of them who was captured aboard Enterprise is Klingon Dr. Phil's son. Klingon Dr. Phil asks Phlox and Antok how long it'll be until they have a way to turn off the virus and make Klingon augments, and Phlox is like, "It'll be ready in about an hour." So Klingon Dr. Phil calls the commander of the fleet that's on its way to kill them and says, "Hey, if we can figure out how to make Klingon augments by the time you get here, will you not kill us?" And the commander of the fleet says, "Yeah, sure, I guess." Later on Enterprise, Archer gets a call from Harris, who's like, "Hey, I work for Starfleet, but on the down low doing sneaky shit as authorized by the Starfleet Charter in Section 31. We arranged the kidnapping of your doctor because he's doing some important shit for us. Also, Malcolm works for us too. He was just trying to keep you from rescuing Phlox too soon, so don't be too hard on him, okay? I'm glad we had this very needed and narratively important chat. Bye." Malcolm decides he wants to be loyal to Archer now, so he gives Archer his best guess as to where Phlox is being held, which is, of course, correct. So Enterprise and Columbia both head there. Meanwhile, Phlox has narrowed down his search for the cure to 4 possible preparations of the virus. 1 will cure, the other 3 will kill. So he injects 4 Klingons, Antok, Klingon Dr. Phil, and 2 goons, and then has to wait and see what happens. Whoever doesn't die wins. And the winner is Klingon Dr. Phil. Now Phlox has to work fast to make the cure so that Antok doesn't die. Klingon Dr. Phil is like, "Did you say cure? You were supposed to be making augments." Then Archer shows up with a phaser and with the smooth-headed Klingon they captured, who is Klingon Dr. Phil's son. Klingon Dr. Phil is like, "Son?" Phlox is like, "Hey, if I can finish this cure in time, I can save your son from dying from the plague too. How would that be?" Above the planet, the Klingon fleet arrives to kill everybody. Enterprise and Columbia fight them off, while Phlox races to finish the cure. He says, "Hey, Captain Archer, if I inject you with the virus, it'll help me finish the cure faster for reasons." Archer's like, "Sure, why the fuck not?" So Phlox does that, and Archer writhes and growls and grows adorable little ridges on his forehead. And after about 18 months of that, Phlox is like, "Ding! Cure's ready." He also beams some of the virus aboard the lead ship of the Klingon attack fleet and says, "You're all infected with a deadly virus that I now have the cure for, so maybe don't blow us up." The Klingons call off the attack, and we cut to sickbay, where Phlox has just successfully cured Antok. He looks a little different. As a side effect of the cure, everyone who was infected with the virus, all those millions and millions of Klingons, will lose their forehead ridges and take on other more human characteristics. Antok's like, "Shit, these alterations will be passed on to our children. But at least we'll all know the reason why some Klingons look like this now. I'm sure that will be of great interest to people whose opinions definitely deserve to be taken seriously." Also, Trip says he's going to remain aboard Enterprise temporarily to help with repairs. Cut to Malcolm in his quarters. He gets another call from Harris, who's like, "Hey, good job. The Klingon Empire is stabilized, which is good for everyone. Yay!" Malcolm says, "Don't ever call me again. I'm loyal to one man from now on, Jonathan Archer." And he hangs up, and we fade to black. We end by resolving the least interesting plot in this very not interesting episode. Outstanding. So, I think these episodes are a pointless waste of time, and to this day, it baffles me how obviously talented professional people thought they were worth even a fraction of the money and effort they took to make. But they did make them. So let's talk about it. The creators put in a lot of work, and I mean a lot of work, trying to sell this two-parter as a story that actually needed to be told for its own sake. But no matter how complicated they try to make the plot, or how much interpersonal drama they try to gin up, they can't disguise the fact that this whole thing was done to answer an irrelevant question that, by the time these episodes were produced, nobody other than the most insufferably pedantic members of the hardcore fan base was even asking anymore. Why do the Klingons in Star Trek the original series look different from the Klingons in the movies and TNG and all other Star Trek shows produced after that? We know the answer to this question, because starting with the movies, they had a bigger budget and they decided to make the Klingons look different. That's the answer. For decades, it was never addressed on screen, and it shouldn't have been. On-screen changes motivated by behind-the-scenes factors happen all the time. The Klingons started looking different for the same reason Zefram Cochrane looks like Glenn Corbett in the original series and James Cromwell in Star Trek First Contact. And Saavik looks like Kirstie Alley in Star Trek II and Robin Curtis in Star Trek III. Should TNG have spent an episode explaining why Worf's forehead ridges changed in appearance over the course of the series? Of course not. It doesn't warrant acknowledgement or explanation. And besides, years before this Enterprise two-parter was made, it was acknowledged on screen in the only way it ever should have been, if it was going to be at all, in the form of a joke. When the Deep Space Nine crew travel back in time and find themselves Forrest Gumped into the classic Trek episode, The Trouble with Tribbles, some of them notice that the Klingons hanging around Space Station K7 don't look like any Klingons they've ever seen. They ask Worf for an explanation, and he says, "It's a long story, and we don't discuss it with outsiders." It takes a few seconds of screen time, and it is a far more clever, interesting, and satisfying answer than this entire two-part episode of Enterprise. Don't think the Klingon forehead bit is my only problem with Affliction and Divergence. It's a big problem, for sure, but even without it, these two episodes would still be rotten. There's barely enough plot here for one episode, and for some reason they decided they wanted to spend 2 episodes on this, which means an almost too simple story needs to be bulked up with unnecessary scenes and subplots that contribute absolutely nothing. Phlox gets kidnapped, but we can't get straight to the action of the pursuit to find and rescue him because we need to stretch this to 2 episodes. So instead of Hoshi noticing that one of the kidnappers was speaking Rigelian and using that clue to kickstart the chase, we need to have Hoshi not remember that one of the kidnappers was speaking Rigelian, so we can have a tedious mind meld scene where T'Pol helps Hoshi remember, while Archer stands by coaching a reluctant T'Pol through the mind meld with dialogue like, "Try to relax your emotional suppression just a little." Oh, what's that? We need to burn up more time to get this to a double-length episode? Let's add a subplot about Malcolm working for Section 31. We're already doing a worse version of explaining why Klingons look different, so we might as well botch another concept borrowed from Deep Space Nine as well. The stuff with Malcolm and Harris and the tension between Malcolm and Archer is so much wasted breath. There's never an ounce of suspense about how it's going to go, which side Malcolm will ultimately choose. Worse yet, it's presented as some kind of secretive cloak and dagger mission where Harris and Malcolm talk around certain points to avoid revealing too much to the audience. Then it turns out the stuff they were trying to avoid revealing was stuff we already knew. There was no new element, no added complication, no unexpected twist brought in by their plot. They were just speaking evasively to each other about information that not only they knew, but we already knew too. The only person involved in this subplot who doesn't know is Captain Archer, who doesn't find out until deep into part 2. Always a sign of good writing when it takes an episode and a half for the lead character to catch up to where the audience has been since almost the beginning. Speaking of catching up, damn, that Columbia is fast, ain't it? Enterprise has a several-day head start and is flying at faster than its recommended top speed. But by the time part 2 begins, Columbia has already closed the distance. I will say, The visual of the two ships flying belly to belly like that is very cool. I just wish the creators hadn't been so eager to show us that visual that they didn't bother coming up with a better justification for it. The whole sequence of Trip crawling along the wire between ships takes forever and is so inflated with false tension, and when it's over, what has been accomplished? One guy has moved from the bottom spaceship to the top spaceship. Good thing we spent so long on that. That needlessly long scene is immediately followed by another, even more endless scene where Trip does what apparently only he could do: spout a bunch of technobabble while restarting Enterprise's engines to fix the problems the Klingons caused. It's worse than the previous scene because it lacks the cool visual and the theoretically tense situation of someone crossing from ship to ship on a wire. This one is just people scrambling around the set, shouting incomprehensible jargon in the service of what I'm told is, but have no way to meaningfully recognize as, solving the problem. It plays like a scene from a show making fun of Star Trek. Phony drama layered over meaningless technobabble. That's pretty much the entire two-parter right there. Manufactured drama, technobabble, tedious and unnecessary scenes where characters reveal supposedly shocking information that we in the audience have known all along, or resolve allegedly life-threatening crises by pushing buttons and waving devices with blinking lights and shouting urgently to each other about when to initialize the warp matrix and activate the antimatter stream. It's 2 episodes of all the laziest, most off-putting tropes from the Berman era of Star Trek, joined together, by the way, by what has to be one of the weakest cliffhangers I've ever seen. Instead of an exciting and perilous note that has us saying, oh my god, what's gonna happen next? How are they gonna get out of this one? The ending of part 1 is more like, anyway, it's bad. It's bad because of what it's trying to do, and it's bad because of how it tries to do it. And look, maybe some of you who are watching this don't see the whole Klingon forehead issue the same way I do. Maybe you think they did need to explain that on screen, and that these episodes were a good explanation, and you think that I just don't get it. But even though I have a different point of view than you, and I think you're a doofus who gets hung up on shit that doesn't fucking matter, I want to assure you that I do get it. I get it. I know what goes through your head. You're thinking, sometimes the canon's perfect, nothing to rearrange. Sometimes you need explanations why the Klingons had to change. Their foreheads had bumps in the 90s. In the 60s, they looked just like men. I need to know why. It's my right as a fan, or I'll never suspend disbelief again. I'll whine and bawl about gaps in the lore. Explain to all why it's not like before. A gene mutation, a viral strain, no holes must remain. I've got no life, you owe me. I'm never gonna shut up now. Ba 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 ba. It's not the same without the music. Affliction was written by Mike Sussman from a story by Season 4 showrunner Manny Coto. No surprise there, Coto loved nothing more than wasting time jacking off over the precious lore, and was directed by Michael Grossman, who also directed the Enterprise episodes Hatchery and The Forge. Divergence was written by Judith and Garfield Reeves-Stevens, who were hired as writers for Season 4 by Manny Coto because they liked jacking off over the lore just as much as he did, and directed by David Barrett, who would go on to direct 2 episodes of Star Trek Discovery, Season 1's Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad, and Season 2's Saints of Perfection, both of which are way better than this shit. Even at this point, when the series, despite having a few good episodes still to come, was mostly circling the drain, the cast and crew of Star Trek Enterprise were talented and hardworking people. that Affliction and Divergence are such empty and redundant exercises in canon patching isn't a reflection on the abilities of the artists who made it. It's an example of what can happen when artists devote their energies to material that is beneath them and should have been left where it originated and where it still belongs, as fodder for nerds arguing on message boards. Those are my thoughts on Affliction and Divergence. What do you think of these episodes? Please share your thoughts with me in the comments. If you'd like to support this channel, and I sure wish you would, if you can afford it, you can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Steve Shives, becoming a channel member by clicking the join button, or by making a one-time gift by clicking the thanks button, or via PayPal or Venmo. Links are in the description. Please join me next week as I begin a brand new batch of reviews. You know, I realized that last year, through no intention of my own, I didn't review that many episodes of Star Trek Voyager. Didn't really break my heart, since I'm not the world's biggest Voyager fan, but fair is fair. So I'm going to atone for that neglect by devoting the next 6 reviews exclusively to episodes of that series. The theme of the next batch, Spotlight on Voyager. And the first Voyager episode I'm reviewing in that batch is a show from Season 1 called The Cloud. See you next time for that. Thanks for watching, and take care, everybody. Actually, one more thing. I've been doing this Klingon-centric spoofs of sitcom themes thing for this batch of reviews. It's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it. I'm not going to do it for the next one because that's a new batch and I'm retiring the bit, at least for now, for a while, given the old pipes arrest. But I began the Heart of Glory review with a Klingon-themed parody of the theme song from All in the Family, which was sort of a lament of Klingons living in a time of peace who long for the warlike old days. And I sang it in my own voice, and a lot of you said, damn, I wish you had sung it more like Archie and Edith did in the show. That would have been funnier. So, hold your ears. Seriously, ride your volume level. This is going to get pretty shrill in a second. Boyd-awaited core head quips. Attacking Federation ships. Croaking all you human drips. Those were the days. But now that all the wars are gone, life's become a great big yawn. And we search the galaxy for something new to cling on. Didn't need no peace accords. Swarming worlds in mighty hordes. Hacking our foes with our swords. Those were the days! You wanted this. You asked for this.